This video is sponsored by FlexiSpot. More on them later. I have 24 hours to make a Roblox tower defense game. That means I have to do all the scripting, modeling, building, and UI all by myself in only one day. Is it even possible? I guess we're gonna find out. But before I start the timer, let me tell you a bit about the game idea. I didn't want this to just be a generic tower defense game because there are so many of those on the platform. So I started thinking about some cool themes for a tower defense game that I haven't seen before. I thought back to a movie that I loved growing up called Pirates of the Caribbean. Caribbean? I really don't know. And fun fact, Jack Sparrow is actually played by me. You can Google that. It'll definitely say CodeBro29. Anyway, I thought it'd be really cool to make a pirate tower defense game. In the game, players will be protecting their pirate ship from a band of rival pirates. And in the process, you earn all sorts of treasure and gold and all that other piratey stuff. So now that I have the idea for the game, it's time to start actually making it. Alright, it's officially 2:15, which means I have until 2:15 tomorrow to complete this game. My plan is to start with the map and then get to the scripting and UI later. So let's start building. I started out building the map by creating a rough outline for what it was going to look like. Now remember, this is a pirate tower defense where you have to defend your pirate ship from enemy pirates. So I wanted this map to have different sections. One section would be a grass area, which would have a pirate tavern where all of the pirate enemies would spawn. And then that area would lead to a beach with a dock where your pirate ship was going to be tied up. For the basic floors, I just use Roblox parts and then put a nice texture on them to make it look polished. But the water kind of just looks boring right now. So to make the water look better and more dynamic, I use this particle pack from a user called Dev for Hire. I'll leave the pack down in the description if you want to check it out, but basically it just uses Roblox particles to add some ripples to the water and make it look like it's actually moving. After that, I created a basic pathway for all the enemies to follow that led down toward the beach. But you may notice there's no dock on the water yet, so if the pirates just continue walking, they're gonna, well, drown, and we don't want that. So it's time to go make some 3D models. I created a list of everything I'm gonna need to make, including a dock, a tavern, a pirate ship, trees, some various guns, cannons, cutlass, or pirate flag. And to make sure I stay on track, I'm gonna have to model all of these in an hour or less. Yeah, please send help. I hopped in a blender and got straight to work on these assets, starting with the dock. Now bear in mind, I'm not a modeler, so I'm gonna stick with a low poly style for this game. Once I finished the dock, I switched over to making the assets for the environment, such as the border and the trees. They look pretty generic, but they look alright. Then I modeled the weapons for you to fight back with, as well as a pirate ship. Then I got to work on the tavern that the enemies were gonna spawn at. I found this super cool pirate tavern made by a guy called Mosquite? I have no clue how to say it. But anyway, I'm going to be taking a lot of inspiration from that build to try and make something similar for my game. And this build probably took longer than any of the other assets, and it honestly just looks worse than the rest of the models. But by the time I finished, I was already over an hour and a half into the challenge, so I just had to move on. I imported all of the models into Roblox and added some colors to them, because as a wise man once said, if you don't have color, you don't have color. And if you don't have color, you don't have color. Then I put the dock and the pirate ship into the map, and it's already starting to look so much better. After that, I extended the walkway for the enemies to go across the dock and toward the pirate ship. Then I added in the tavern at the beginning, and it looked perfect. Well, except for the fact that it looks terrible. But other than that, it looks perfect. I will say, creating a game in 24 hours has been very time consuming and has taken a lot of hard work. And if you're anything like me, then you spend hours and hours every single week seated at a computer desk. And while I love what I do, there are definitely some downsides if you do not have the right chair. So before we continue making the game, I want to take a second to tell you about the C7Max from FlexiSpot, the sponsor of today's video. I've been using the C7 for a few weeks now, and I'm absolutely loving it. Like I mentioned, I spend hours every single week creating games and uploading YouTube videos onto my channel. But to help improve my health and overall experience while making these videos for you guys, I've been able to use FlexiSpot's ergonomic C7 chair. Now, unlike the wooden table chair that I actually used for a very long time, ergonomic chairs like the C7 are built for people like me that spend a lot of time at a desk. What's really cool is that the C7Max has an adjustable backrest that allows you to find the perfect height and fit for you. And instead of using cheap foam for the seats, the C7 has a latex seat cushion that is super comfortable when sitting down. The C7 also offers a 3D adjustable headrest that makes it super easy to find a comfortable head position while you're working. Oh, and possibly my favorite feature, the back backrest allows for 135-degree tilting, meaning that I can take a break to just kick back and relax. I also have the added footrest on my chair, which is super easy to slide out and use. You can also slide out the seat to make it even more comfortable to sit in, and you can spin and adjust the armrests. FlexiSpot is having a spring sale with big discounts on chairs. Use my code C750 to get an extra $50 off the C7Max. The more you buy, the more you save. Then I added the trees and the borders around the map to fill it in, and it's already starting to look really polished. After that, I just scaled everything way down because for some reason tower defense games are always really small. And there we go, there's the map. I honestly think it turned out pretty well. Except for that tavern. Yeah, we don't talk about the tavern. But currently this is just a map, so I think it's time to make the enemies. I found a pirate character in the toolbox and just took his hat and clothes. Oh, sorry, Toolbox Pirate. There you go, now you're looking good. And now we have our base pirate. And I actually ended up using a different pirate hat that I thought looked better. So here you go, Toolbox Pirate. You can have your hat back. Then I started scripting the enemy system. I created some little cubes all across the path that would direct the enemy in the direction to go. Then in the script, I basically just moved the pirate along to the next point in the path. Now it works, but there's a little itty bitty problem. The enemies are just kind of levitating. Now I could make some walking animations, but that would be a lot of work. So instead I could, you know, oh, wow, crazy. Now we have animations. I wonder where those came from. Okay, so now we have enemies that can walk all the way to the pirate ship, but they don't really have anything to attack the ship with. Unless they wanted to punch the ship, but that probably won't do anything. So I hopped into Blender and modeled them this, I think that's a sword, and put that inside of the enemies. Now, unfortunately, Roblox doesn't have a sword animation for me to borrow, so I'm gonna have to make this one on my own. And here's the animation that I made. Then I just updated the script so that when the enemies reach the ship, they start swinging their swords and dealing damage to the ship. I also added a health bar over the ship so that players could see just how close they were to losing. Cool, so everything is working, but the only problem is that there's no way to actually win the game. So it's time to work on the placement system. In tower defense games, you are given a variety of weapons to place down and fight against the enemy waves. Since I'm making a pirate's tower defense, I used a cannon as the first weapon. For the placement system, I basically just checked to see where the mouse was positioned, and then I took the weapon and put it in the position of the mouse, and then whenever the players clicked, I sent a message to the game that placed the item for good on the ground. After that, I started scripting the cannon so that it could actually shoot. For this weapon, I basically just checked to see which enemy was the closest, and if that enemy was in range, it would deal damage to them to signify that it was shooting a cannonball. Once the cannons were working, I decided that I wanted to add something to the enemies. See, currently whenever they die, they just break apart like a regular Roblox character. But that doesn't look realistic at all, so I decided to go ahead and add ragdolling. I found a module on the dev forum for ragdolling and added it, and it worked perfectly. Wait, what? Why do they look like that? For some reason, the module made them look really weird, so I just kind of scrapped that and decided to make a death animation instead. But currently you can only place cannons, so it's kind of hard to progress in the game. So I added two more weapons, the pirate gunman, who I'm naming Steve, and the pirate swordsman, who I'm naming also Steve. I'm sure people won't get confused by that. One of them uses the musket to shoot other enemy pirates, and the other follows the other pirates and uses a sword. The only issue right now is that there's no UI, which, to answer your question, stands for user interface. And to answer your next question, yes, I am a nerd. So for the UI, I created some buttons on the screen with some nice gradients and glow effects. I think it looked really cool. Basically, these buttons were going to be used to select the weapon that you wanted to place. After that, I added a script that would put all of the different weapons inside of those buttons so you could see what you were placing. Then I added some animations and some sound effects to the buttons to make them really satisfying. I could literally do this all day. After that, it was time to make the most OP weapon in the game. I'm talking about the mini ship. I made this little tiny ship that was a miniature of your pirate ship and added 4 different cannons onto that ship. And I also added pirates that were holding onto those cannons. Then I used the cannon ship to make all 4 of the cannons shoot at the enemies. And if that's not overpowered enough, I made the ship do 250 damage and have a huge range. And with that, the game was almost done. I basically just added some more enemies and added some more waves, and then spent a ton of time playtesting and balancing the game. And also, here are all the enemies that I was able to add. Now, unfortunately, I hit the 24-hour mark before I finished balancing the game, so it's kind of hard to beat right now, and I'm sure it's full of bugs since it was made in only one day. But let me know down in the comments if you want me to update the game or not. Huge thanks to Yucktpie, The Blindy, Pear, and Deja Vu for supporting me on Patreon and on the channel. If you want to get shoutouts at the end of my videos, either join on Patreon down in the description or click the join button on my channel. Also, make sure to join my Discord server, link down in the description. And if you like this video, I think you're going to like the one on screen now. And remember to go to the link down in the description and use code C750 for $50 off the C7Max. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.